This narrative is changing at a very slow pace, but there's that marginal adjustment that we see in the unemployment rate. Firstly, your reaction?
Mixed feelings at this point, because obviously the slight decrease to 31.4 is definitely worth celebrating, because behind that percentage is millions of young people, and so definitely worth celebrating. But digging into the detail and really looking at the proportion that is still making the majority of this unemployment proportion really is a sobering statistic. So we do have to still pay attention to what is the population that's really making up this 31.4%.
Absolutely, Nellie. My colleague Xolim Gambi just a short while ago spoke to economist Duma Qubule, who expressed that there seems to be a lack of political will when it comes to changing the narrative of South Africa's unemployment rate. What are your views on that front, particularly on what can be done practically?
So we have to acknowledge, firstly, that the economy doesn't have capacity to absorb all of its supply when it comes to the labor and all of the trained young people and youth that are being poured into the economy. And so we have to be willing to shift the perspectives of what it takes to actually get young people connected to the economy. Typical ways of doing it and traditional, formal job markets are not going to be enough to actually shift this percentage. We have to be looking at where digital platforms are going, and what kind of skills do we really have to be equipping young people with in order for them to connect to the economy sustainably.
Critical element when you speak of skills, but the upskilling of South African people in a world and a global economy that is seeing technological advancements, the acceleration of artificial intelligence. How far are we lagging as South Africa to getting to that point?
I think we're not having the conversation in enough detail and what it means for generating an income. So yes, it's a skill, but how do we connect the skill to employment? Because training does not equal employment, nor does it equal income. So we have to be able to elevate the conversation beyond the training that we're providing. Once young people have the skills, whether it's in, machine learning, AI, all of the digital skills that we're talking about, what happens in order for them to then start generating an income? And so this is where organizations like Afrika Tikkun are really focusing on pivoting, so that it's no longer about just providing a traditional job. How do we provide project management skills? How do we equip young people to be able to position themselves online, to really use these digital skills to transform their entrepreneurial skills to also match the digital skills that they have? How do they market their services? How do they gain businesses online? How do they deliver them online? Get payments? All of those things are not necessarily matched to the digital conversation that we're having at the moment.
Now, having touched on the work of Afrika Tikkun, is there a role to play for the state to support that particular agenda as opposed to following the world's trends?
Absolutely. It's collaborative impact. 43.8 15 to 34-year-olds are unemployed. It's not a one organization or one government policy kind of intervention that is required. It's a combined effort between the private sector, government, civil society. And so we do need to stop compartmentalizing impact and the difference that we're making, and seeing that it's a combined effort to say what are the resources that are available and how do we actually transform them into meaningful results together.
Lastly, and quite alarmingly, the rate of the discouraged job seekers is rising. What's to be said about sentiment that speaks directly to where the numbers are going?
So it speaks to this notion of missing millions, right? In that we're missing a lot of young people, in that what we're still thinking is early for them, and they're getting disconnected from the economy. We have to really be able to connect them early, within 6 months of leaving school, because the gap year concept for low socioeconomic young people is very different from those who have resources. And so earlier access and earlier interventions are possibly the best way of reducing discouragement from work seeking, because the longer they're out of the economy, whether it be employment, education, or training, the more they're likely to then get discouraged because they're not necessarily in the action of what it actually takes to be generating, productive income and contributing to their environments.
Thank you so much for your contribution. Nellie Zembe is with Afrika Tikkun, giving us more reaction to the latest quarterly labour force survey out from Stats SA earlier today, indicating that marginal ease in the unemployment rate to 31.4% in the fourth quarter of 2025. That's where we leave it in business news for this evening and take a look at market developments. It's unfortunately a negative end on the JSE, the All Share Index having lost 1.30% on